Hey guys, welcome back. On today's video, we'll be looking at one of the most purest form of mechanical things that man has ever made. That led us to choose between slightly better performance and slightly better fuel economy. Well, it's nothing but carburetor. It is also known as atomizer. And on today's video, we'll be looking at what a carburetor is, how it works, and what are its pros and cons. Let's get into the video. Okay, so let's first look into the parts of a carburetor. Carburetor has these many parts. Okay, it has a choke valve, a throttle valve, a float feed chamber, which is connected to the main fuel tank. This float feed chamber also acts as a mini fuel tank, wherein it has a float and a valve that blocks the passage of the fuel from the main fuel tank whenever necessary. So this is how a carburetor looks like. This is the carburetor of a motorcycle. As you can see, this is a cross section and this is also a cross section. These both will be of same size, and the one that comes between them, which is known as venturi, it's kind of kinked and it has a smaller cross section compared to the other two sides. So the purpose of it I'll be explaining in the working section. Now, okay, that's it. And this is the fuel sump. This is the float. And if you could look closely, this is the valve I was talking about. This is where the fuel comes from, main fuel tank. Now this is connected to the fuel. Okay, the sole purpose of the carburetor is to mix enough amount of oxygen with right amount of fuel. The most commonly used units is 14.7 unit of oxygen to 1 unit of fuel. That's what they have been using commonly, and that perfect mixture is known as stoichiometric mixture. Now let's get into the working of the carburetor. Okay, you start the engine, you give in the throttle. Now the suction stroke happens. When the suction stroke happens, the intake valve opens, and that sucks air from the atmosphere, like here. Sucks air from the atmosphere, and it goes through this pipe inside the carburetor. And what happens here is, when the air is flowing in through this pipe, it hits this venturi part, and its pressure is decreased. When the pressure decreases, its velocity increases. That's what is called as Bernoulli's principle. Okay, when the pressure increases, your velocity decreases, and when your pressure decreases, your velocity increases. Since your pressure is being decreased here, your velocity increases. This creates a suction effect, and due to that, the fuel in this float feed chamber gets drawn into this throttle valve side of the carburetor side and gets mixed well with this air. Now this perfect air fuel ratio or mixture is then sent into the engine's combustion chamber, and then the combustion process takes place. This throttle right here is connected to your accelerator in case of a car, or it's connected to the throttle on your handlebar in case of a motorcycle. The more air fuel mixture that enters into the engine, your engine kind of releases more energy. More the energy the engine releases, more power it makes, and that's just how the carburetor works. Now coming to the float feed chamber, it has a float and a feed and a valve that blocks the passage of the fuel whenever necessary. So how this works is, you got to look into this part. Say you got enough fuel inside your sump and your float reaches a certain level, it will make this valve right here to move slightly above and block the passage, so that further fuel won't be filling into this already filled float feed chamber. And eventually, when the fuel right here sinks, the float also sinks along with it, thereby making this valve to release and then allowing the fuel to refill this float feed chamber from the main fuel tank. Okay, coming to the choke part. When you choke yourself, you won't be able to breathe. The same thing happens with the carburetor. When you choke your carburetor, it won't be able to breathe air in freely. So at that time, let's say you choked your carburetor and you give in the accelerator. What happens here is there will be a vacuum created here, and you'll be sucking just more fuel and mixing them with less amount of oxygen. You need that initially in order to start your vehicle, and that's how you do the cold start, and that's where the choke comes into play. You release the choke, you'll get the perfect air fuel mixture, and then your engine will be burning rich. That's it. That's just how choke works. The best thing about carburetor is that you can just like that play with it. Meaning, if at all something goes wrong, you'll be able to figure out a way in order to fix it and then put it back together and make it work. That's the only pro in carburetor, and it was the best atomizer back in the days before 1970s. Now they got swapped with fuel injectors, and fuel injectors are good, efficient, which gets us to the con part. carburetors are not efficient, as much efficient as you think it is, and that's the main reason why they got kicked out. Though, bikes or scooters with low cubic capacity, they come with carburetors, and that's because they are cost efficient. Carburetors are cost efficient. And by the way, I've linked my Instagram page in the description below. You guys can go and check it out. I'll be posting cool stuffs, posts and videos only related to automobile and nothing else. We'll also be asking you guys some interesting questions. So that's it. If you guys have any questions or doubts, make sure to leave them in the comment box below. Bye. Meet you guys in the next video.